What's going on, guys? It's Yeti back with another episode of SPOOKsquatch with Yeti Roosevelt. In this episode, I'm going to be reviewing a movie I've been meaning to watch for years. But now, since I have to watch a horror movie every day, or review a horror movie every day, I need to fill in some gaps. So, I decided to watch Dark Was the Night. It came out in 2014. And, I took notes, by the way. Like, a front and back page of notes while I was watching this movie. Because I've never seen it. So I wanted to make sure I retained stuff. So, Dark Was the Night takes place in a small town called Maiden Woods. And you follow the character of Sheriff Shields. And this town is so small that it's literally just a sheriff and a deputy. There's no other law officials in the town. One night, or one morning, no, it's one night, the sheriff gets called to this horse farm, and this guy is missing a horse. And he's like, oh, it's probably just pranksters. I'll look for him. I'll make a case, and we'll figure it out. Well, the next morning, his deputy comes over and asks him, have you been outside yet? And he says, no. And he's like, come out here and look at this. And there's hoof prints, or footprints, all over the town. It looks like a horse's hoof with 3 prongs coming off of it. So, like, I can't even make it. Like, they look weird. But they look like horse prints. But they're very close together, like it's bipedal. And so now this whole thing becomes like, well, what the hell is making these things? They kind of write it off like it's probably the same pranksters for a very short time. And because like the footprints go up to people's windows, so it's like it's been looking inside. But then they follow it back to as far as they can. They go to the woods, and as soon as they get into like where the trees are thick at all, the footprints just stop. And so now the whole movie is them trying to figure out what or who is doing this stuff. They quickly realize that all wildlife is fleeing the area. It's hunting season, and there's no deer, there's no squirrels, birds are migrating out of the area the wrong way. So they're like, something is happening. You find out that it is built on, Maiden Woods is built on Shawnee ground, Native American ground. And so they put the seed in your head that like, well, maybe the land is cursed. The sheriff starts looking up on Google. It's called something else. I meant to write down what the search engine was called. It's hilarious. It's called like Find Me or something like that. It's really funny. And he looks up the footprint. He like describes it. And the only thing that they can find is a Native American mythological creature called a Wendiga. I thought it was Wendigo, but then I paused it, and it's Windiga. So Wendiga. I think it's Wendiga. But that's the only thing, and he's like, well, it can't be that because it's not a thing. Then the deputy talks about a fish that was found in the Philippines that was supposed to be thought long extinct, but they just caught one. So he's like, hey, maybe this is just something that's been hiding alone for eons. And someone has disturbed it or whatever, and now it's here. And then shortly after that, like a day after that, you find out that a ruckus was caused like 90 miles north at a lumber mill, a logging mill. And that's where the first attacks of this thing happened. It's the first records of these footprints. So the sheriff does some digging and finds out that they have been logging way out into the forest where it's been untouched for centuries, essentially. So it lends more credence to that, oh, it's been something that's been dormant for a long time, something that's just been living its own private life for a long time that has been disturbed. And he follows the tree line all the way down. And the southernmost point of the tree line is Maiden Woods. So they think this thing has just worked its way down, and now it's kind of stuck. It doesn't have any more tree cover, so it's just kind of staying near this town. But since all the animals have fled and this thing needs to eat, it's going after people. So this group of hunters decides that they're going to go hunt this thing. Doesn't end well. One of them survives. The other two you find mutilated and way up in the treetops. Apparently there were deer up there too. According to something that someone said later, I didn't see any deer in that scene. I was very focused on the people, but whatever. And then it turns out that there was an ancient legend in this town of that happening to a small child being found mutilated way up high in the trees. So then they do some more digging on what this Wendigo is, and apparently it's like a forest spirit. So like if the forest is sullied in any way, this thing is supposed to wreak havoc. So like now it's like, is it this Wendigo or is it this ancient thing that they disturbed? And you literally never get an answer. You're just supposed to be like, it's a thing. But it is a monster. It is a monster. It's not a person playing a prank. One of the hunters catches footage of it on the infrared camera. And it's the first time you see it, and it is bipedal, and it's pretty big. And then this awful blizzard rolls into town. And most of the town's people flee. But some people stay, including the sheriff and his son. And they're at home one night, and his son sees something out the window. And they hear a noise downstairs. So the sheriff locks him in the bathroom and tells his son to hide in the tub. And he goes downstairs to check out what it is. And you see this thing. And the sheriff calls his deputy on their walkie-talkie, and he's like, this thing's in my house, you need to come back. And he comes back, they scare the thing off, and the sheriff goes, we need to get everybody that's left in this town into the church. It's big enough to hold all of us. There's strength in numbers. We need to put all of us into the church. So that's what they do. The sheriff calls a bigger town to the north, I think he said. And they said the next day after the blizzard, they're going to send park rangers to come check out whatever this animal is. So they know that if they can make it to the next day, that they get help. So all the townspeople go to the church. It's probably like maybe 20 people in the church. And you hear movement on the roof and then banging on the front door. So this thing's trying to get in because that's where all the meat is. It's just these people. That's all that's left. So they corral everybody to the basement. The two hunters that have survived say, we'll stay in this basement and protect everyone down here because the sheriff and the deputy want to go up and cut this thing off at the pass. And that's what they do. They go upstairs. They follow the noises. The front door's wide open, so they know it's in there. And they track it to this side hallway. And the sheriff tells the deputy, you stay in this doorway. I'm going to go down this hall. If it attacks me down there, it's got to come this way to get out. It'll come right at you. So they're bottlenecking this thing. And as the sheriff is doing that, the deputy sees the creature. They never gave it a name. You see the creature come through a window, like a hazy window on the side of him. That leads to a kitchen. He goes and checks it out, and he has a firefight with this thing. It cuts his thigh pretty good. But he blows a big chunk out of its shoulder with a shotgun, and it runs away. Sheriff obviously heard this commotion. He comes and checks it out, and sees that his deputy's hurt. He's like, it's not fatal, but he just really can't put pressure on it. So the sheriff goes and looks for it. The deputy's like, this thing's hurt, so it's going to be desperate, and it's already really fast, strong, and smart, so watch out, because now it's desperate. At some point, I know the sheriff had a rifle or like an automatic rifle. I don't know where it went. Like, all of a sudden, he just didn't have it. I don't know if I went to get a drink or went to pee or something. Or one of my kids talked to me and I missed something. But all of a sudden, he just didn't have this rifle anymore. He's just got his revolver. And he's in the actual common room of the church. And he's laying on the ground and pulling himself under the pews. So he's sliding around on the floor. And he sees this thing's feet. And sure as shit, it looks like a hoof with claws coming off of it this way. And another little claw down here. So it's basically exactly what they described. Excuse me. So the sheriff goes and he pops the little button on his holster to get his gun out. And where he's laying, the feet are like 2 or 3, maybe 4 pews over here. And they're angled the same way he's laying. Once he pops his button on his gun, the feet turn right towards him. So this thing knows exactly where he is. It's so smart. So then he has a skirmish with this monster. He fires a couple rounds into it. He gets disarmed. This creature pins him to the ground. The sheriff pulls a knife out of, I'm pretty sure, his boot. And he sticks it like near its navel. And then slides up to its rib cage. And all this just wonderful viscera and blood pours out of this monster. And it's dead. It stops moving. He tells the deputy. The deputy sees it. He says, watch this monster. I'm going to go get the people. He's like, if it moves, do what you got to do. They go get the people out of the basement. Everyone's rejoicing. And thanking the sheriff. You did a great job. Talking to the deputy like, we're sorry you got hurt, but you did a great thing here tonight. He's from New York. He was a city boy, so they didn't like him. Now they do. So everyone's going about being all happy and congratulatory. And the deputy is just staring at the body of this monster. And the sheriff comes up to him and he says, what's wrong? And the deputy just points at the creature and he goes, I blew a chunk out of that thing's shoulder. And the sheriff goes, yeah? And the deputy just points again. He goes, that ain't it. And it shows it, and it's both shoulders are completely fine. And it pans out of the church and shows the outside, like an establishing shot of the church. And you see at least 6 more of these things outside, but then one turns toward the camera like that and then comes at the camera. And that's credits. And the movie literally ends just right there. So the implications are that these people probably didn't make it. But, yeah, they never tell you what the creature is. I kind of like that. I like the whole fear of the unknown thing. But I liked the mystery of this movie a lot. This sheriff did legit detective work, and it was refreshing to see that. It wasn't just a bunch of happenstances and coincidences that led to a conclusion. Like, he actually goes and does work. He stays at the station one night and reads old files. He makes a bunch of phone calls to connect a bunch of things. The deputy helps him do that. And I really like seeing that in movies. You don't see it enough. That being said, I'm going to give this movie like an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. But I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. Because the mystery is the scary part of the movie. The monsters aren't that scary. They just kind of act like... They look really cool. They just kind of look like... They're hard to describe. They kind of look like the things from Alone in the Dark, but better. If you all haven't seen that movie, don't. Alone in the Dark is terrible. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. If I had friends that wanted to watch it, I'd watch it with them. But I don't know if I'll ever watch it again by myself. That being said, the movie is streaming on Hulu. That's how I was able to finally watch it. I'm happy I watched it. I've been wanting to for 6 years. So it's cool to check that off of my to-do list. But like I said, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 for basically the mystery alone. That's where all the fear comes from. The monster's just a monster. But I guess that'll do it for this episode. I'm so happy that I watched something new. I'm going to try to make that more of a thing. I'm going to try to broaden my horizons this month. I'm gonna throw classics in. Don't worry. I've decided I'm already going to review Halloween on Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween. So on the 31st, I'll probably talk about that movie for half an hour. I love that movie. But that's for then. So for the final time, I'm so bad at wrapping these up. I just lost my place. Dark was the night. I was gonna say when it was dark. Dark was the night. 8 out of 10. Gets my seal of approval, but it's not good for multiple watchings. So that wraps that up. So until next time, guys. Peace.